How many times have you heard a sermon or watched a video teaching where the teacher explained a different translational definition for a specific Hebrew or Greek word or phrase that appeared in the scriptures in an attempt to get you to see a more accurate translation? What if there was a tool that not only enabled truth seekers to quickly confirm such a claim, or the ability to do other deep word studies of their own, but which also allowed truth seekers to edit or update their personal translations to reflect their current understanding of the scriptures? So the truth seeker could read a set of the scriptures which, word for word, would accurately reflect their current understanding of the scriptures. Well, relax. Thanks to modern technology, this might be possible to achieve without having to become an ancient language scholar who speaks multiple languages. So currently we have a wide variety of translations out there, some more accurate, some less accurate than the King James, for example. In addition, in any situation, whatever the translation, occasionally or often you might come across a certain translated word or phrase you disagree with. Thus far in history, your only option was to either mentally remember the word or phrase you think should be more accurate translation, or you could actually physically strike out the word you disagree with, or make a note on the physical page of the text with your thoughts on what the translation should be. For example, perhaps you've seen some of these Bibles out there, such as the restored name versions, where the translators at least attempted to try to replace the pagan titles assigned over 7,000 times to our Creator with his actual names. The interactive translation project tools will enable users to do just this. These tools will not only enable users to do very in-depth word studies, but they will also allow them to record the results of their studies and broadcast a summary of this knowledge to a world of fellow brother and sister truth seekers on a quest for greater truths. Now, here's where things start to get really interesting. Here's where the interaction or the interactive part of this translation project collaboration comes into play. The tools of the interactive translation project have been programmed to compile, sort, and rank all user data input via an interactive translation number. So a specific interaction translation number, or an IT number, will be associated with every single word in the original text in sequential reading order. So for example, if we're looking at, say, IT number 774, if we have 3,000 users in the interactive translation project, we could potentially have 3,000 different thoughts on that single IT number. However, it is likely that we will not end up with 3,000 different thoughts. It is likely that truth seekers will start forming a consensus and start zeroing in on a few optimal words or phrases that seem to make the most sense. The interactive translation project is then programmed to figure out what was the most commonly agreed upon word or phrase and generates a voted translation. In addition, the homepage of the Interactive Translation Project will also display what words or phrases for that specific IT number were the second most common and the third most common. And there will be a separate tool that allows users to see the full listings of other user translations. Now, it is possible that the majority or the most common or popular translations might not always have it quite right. So 2 more translations have been added, a user translation and an administrator's translation. These 2 translations can be used to keep the voted translation in check. So if the individual user disagrees with a certain word or phrase in the voted translation, they will simply be able to tweak that piece of data to reflect their genuine understanding of what the translation should be. Likewise, the administrator's translation is there to try to weed out weird things that might happen to the voted translation. We'll look at a sample of that later. So the point of all this is that these tools will allow truth seekers to collaborate on the creation of a more accurate and consistent translation of the scriptures like never before, with greatly increased transparency and accountability. In addition to simply entering a word or phrase which the user deems appropriate for the translation, there will be 2 more cells for the user to list their reference, a source to back up why they think the translation should read as they have specified, and to list comments. Then all of this reference and comment data will also be compiled, so users will be able to see all the collective thoughts on a single IT number in a single place. There is so much more. But I do plan to come out with other videos describing some of the other specific features and tools of this project later. I will mention 1 or 2 more noteworthy features of the interactive translation project. Users will have the ability to select a default translation. This could either be the King James, it could be the voted translation, or it could be any other user's translation. So perhaps if there is a ministry that you trust and you get a lot of your teachings from, if they join the project, they may create their own user translation where they enter, the translation that they agree upon. You could then see what their translation is, and you can set that as your default. And I'll explain what it does next. The idea behind the user being able to select a default translation is essentially to fill in the blanks. So users can start with a translation they trust the most, then make edits from there, and their edits for specific IT numbers will override only the words or phrases of the default translation associated with that specific IT number. In the end, users should have a readable translation, a combination of their special tweaks overlaid over a translation they trust the most. Default translations will need to be writings beyond copyright. And I hope you see the point of that, because if it is possible, users could start from blank and just start entering their word study results in one at a time. But if they do that, they're just going to have a lot of gaps. Like, it's not going to be readable unless they overlay it over something. Like, they have to pick something they trust as a starting point, and then when they plug in their tweaks to it, then they'll actually have a readable document with their tweaks overlaid over like the version that they trust the most. And again, the version has to be beyond copyright in electronic form, and users are encouraged to keep us posted, let us know what versions they would like to see as default versions, and we're gonna come up with we're gonna try and get people involved, and we're gonna teamwork and collaboration is gonna be a big part of this project. So if you let us know what you want, we'll put it out there that users are looking for this, and we'll try and help, and maybe your brother and sister truth seekers involved with the project will be able to help as well. Anyway, All that being said, I would like to encourage truth seekers to set the default translation as the voted translation. Here is my reasoning. The voted translation will be the one translation with the most collaboration among truth seekers. Thus, if users keep the default translation as the voted translation, they will be forced to consider many other perspectives. It will force them to become well-rounded in knowing and understanding what other truth seekers are thinking. Go beyond their comfort zones. For example, if the default translation is the voted translation, when the user reads their translation, occasionally they will come across things that jump out at them because of the updates coming from the voted translation. They will then have an opportunity to agree or disagree with the translation, the voted their user translation, but which would be fed from the voted translation. And this, their vote could tip the scales either way towards arriving at the most accurate translation. And so the user interaction or collaboration to the voted translation is really the heart of the interactive translation project. Because of the new level of translational transparency and accountability, it is my hope and prayer that truth will be eventually found. False interpretations leading to errors and doctrines will crumble. This is the interaction part of the interactive translation project. So you really want to be agreeing or disagreeing with what people are putting out there for the voted translation. And I think ideally someday I'd like to have it set up so that I can print the voted translation to a PDF and then plug that through an audio reader. I have a long commute to work every day, and so I can listen to a lot of material, like 2 or 3 hours a day, and you can possibly speed up the reader and stuff. But anyway, read it or listen to it over and over again, and as you listen to it, if it's the voted translation coming through with your tweaks overlaid over it, as you listen or as you cover that material, you will hear different things jumping out at you, which will force you to go look into it, and you'll be able to contribute to this product, and you'll be able to contribute to this pursuit of truth. Anyway, that is my recommendation. Leave the voted translation as the default translation so that you will be constantly challenged to think outside the box and potentially be sharpened or sharpen other truth seekers. Okay, I won't go into detail here, but I want to let you know that there's going to be a very in-depth and comprehensive word study database tool available. Essentially a one-stop shop for all human knowledge pertaining to a specific Hebrew or Greek word. And these will be searchable by the Strong's number, and hopefully at some point the IT number. But it's just going to be, it's really going to be a compendium of all human knowledge when it reaches its full potential. I mean, we're looking for user input, and there'll be of how we can make it better, what sources to add, dictionaries, lexicons, grammars, whatever. All knowledge about the specific Hebrew word in one place, or Greek word. Okay, there will also be an apply to all tool, which will enable users to apply a translational word or phrase to all words of the ancient text with the exact same spelling. We'll see how that works, but I don't profess to be an expert in Hebrew or Greek yet, so I'm at the same level that I'll probably even behind the level which a lot of our users will be starting at. But at this point, I have to believe if we see a word that is spelled exactly the same way in Hebrew or Greek, then the English translation of that word will be the exact same English translation. There's got to be a word or a phrase that's going to fit everywhere, unless we're dealing with a homonym in the original Hebrew or Greek. But that's my thoughts. We'll see how it goes, and I've created this apply to all tool so you can apply your translation to all words at once that match the exact spelling of the word you're looking at. Okay, so the last thing I want to mention, there will also be a users log newsfeed. This is important. So users will be able to see exactly what other truth seekers have been working on in a quick summarized format, rather than scanning the entire books looking for specific user inputs. These user logs will also be a shared space where users will be able to provide contact info, links for their websites and videos, etc., if they choose to interact at that level. And I'll be coming out with more videos that explain all of these tools and features in more specific detail. Alright, so let's look at just a sample picture illustrating the general layout and concept of the homepage of the Interactive Translation Project. Please note I have made up fake data to illustrate the general look and function of the project. So, for example, I or anyone else associated with the project do not necessarily believe the Earth is flat or whatever. I just put that in there to generate some quick random data in order to verify the programming was functioning properly. And actually, I guess I see it's not even a true representation. I see some inconsistency in the yellow cells there. But I guess the main point of this picture was to try to give you an idea of what the voted translation and the top ranked words or phrases could potentially look like. So if you're looking, you can see in between there are 3 columns that have green text, and then on the left, and then there are the yellow cells on the right. In between them are kind of the rankings of what different users theoretically would have inputted. So we show the top 3 voted words or phrases. And then you see how that feeds into the voted translation, and then you see how the administrator's translation is kind of balanced out a little bit, and then you can see the user translation is what is reflected by the inputs in the yellow cells, but you can kind of see how that data transfers. And I just want to mention one more thing. Like I said, I made up this data, just made it up so people could kind of see what could potentially happen to the voted translation, and then how the user translations and administrator translations could respond to that. But I really hope people are going to take this very serious, and we don't want to be sloppy or making words up. Like, so in the first line I have like the letter B and the number 4 taken a shortcut before, and we don't want to do that. We want to use actual words, and then where I am saying flat Earth, like again, I just did that to create data, but we really want to do the best we can to find English translations for these words, and we don't want to take the liberty of adding any more or taking any less than what the original language says. So if the original word in the Hebrew is just land or earth or whatever, I mean, we don't want to add the extra adjective flat, okay, just because it supports our doctrine or whatever. But we don't want to do that. It's in there just to kind of illustrate how the program can function. But what we really want to do is we really want to find the most accurate translation, and the way to do that is we're going to use the tools, and we're going to use each other to sharpen one another, and we're going to, like I said, there's going to be a great level of translational transparency and accountability in this project, and we're going to find out why, what has the most support. Like, I like I said, the lot of different translations out there, some better, some worse than the King James, but like for example, I mean, they're in the King James, like, it's just, it's a good translation. I mean, it's my number 1 translation, but still, I mean, there are just some questions I have, and we'll go over in other videos a few highlights of different things. But like, for example, I'll just. There needs to be consistency, like I was explaining earlier. I just imagine there has to be consistency, and I don't think we should be taking the liberty to add in extra adjectives or anything that is not in the original text. We want to go for the original text. And another thing maybe I've heard a little bit lately is like these concepts, or I don't know what they call them, idioms or whatever, but I think we're still looking for word-to-word translations. We're not looking to try and make the idiom translation or whatever the thought translate. Like, we're looking to get the words translated correctly, and then if there's like this special, whatever they call it, idiom or cliche or some phrase that they used to use to describe things back in the day, then you'll kind of notice something looks kind of funny in the English if we're not familiar with that phrase, and then you kind of open the history books and figure out, well, why were people using this phrase? Did it have more meaning than just the words we're looking at here? Like, what was it supposed to? But we don't want to take the liberty of just inventing different words or adjectives or phrases, abstract. I do believe we want to be as word for word accurate as possible, and then make sense of it from there. But anyway. In summary, I would love to have your participation or suggestions as we strive to make this project better and better. Even if you feel your contribution might not be too significant, even a single word might be the missing piece of the puzzle that thousands of your brothers and sister truth seekers needed in order to come to a full understanding of various topics. So if you wish to join this quest for truth, please send an email to the following email address. I'll have a link for it below the video as well. And be sure to include the words new ITP user in the title of the email so I can sort through what's what. But again, the email is interactive translator, not translation, translator project at gmail.com, and I'll have a link for that below the video. So the interactive translation project is 100% free, and your fellow brother and sister truth seekers need your collaboration. So please don't delay to join us. Please be sure to check out the links and the emails below this video, and until next time, shalom, and may Abba bless you as you continually seek his truths with a pure heart.